Dolphins and the Colts, but they've agreed to another trade that will leave them with 2 first-rounders this year and 2 more in 2023. So according to multiple reports, the Eagles will be sending the 16th, 19th, and 194th picks in this year's draft to the Saints for the 18th, 101, and 237th pick, as well as a 2023 first-round pick and 2024 second-round pick. Sorry, that's a lot. We have a graphic that explains it much more clearly. So they still have the number 15 pick and the 18 pick in the first round this year.
So the Saints are basically telling you, we need wide receivers and offensive linemen. We think this draft will give us both.
Yes.
We're going to bet on Jameis Winston. The Eagles are telling you, we don't think it's a great draft. What it has, we don't need. But what we need to pick for next year if we bail on Jalen Hurts. So teams trade for different reasons.
Right.
I thought Philly won the trade. But basically because Teron Armstead, the tackle, left to Miami, they need a tackle. And also Michael Thomas, a little bit of a wild card. They need a receiver, another playmaker. So they're just telling you, we think we can get both those early in this draft. Philadelphia's telling you, we made the playoffs with Jalen Hurts. We're not sure we're where we want to be eventually.
Correct.
So both teams got what everybody's always worried about, who won it, who lost it. I like what Philadelphia did more because they're a playoff team. And I think with their free agency moves, they're going to be a better team next year. I'm not sure if they're a playoff team, but they should be a little better. You make it for reasons. Both teams got what they wanted.
Yeah, I think it was a good trade. And you're right. Like, the Saints are sort of in a rebuild, but Jameis Winston was playing well before he got injured, whatever you think of Jameis. And I don't know how it's going to go this year without Sean Payton, but Jameis is a low-end starting quarterback in the league.
He's
like,
productive. He's
productive
one of the
enough.
32 best quarterbacks in the world.
Yes.
Yes.
But considering the market, you could do a lot worse than Jameis. Yeah. And he was playing well before he got injured. So the Eagles want to make sure that they're set up for next year in case Jalen Hurts doesn't prove that he is capable this year. I think he will, but why? Doesn't hurt to have an extra pick next year anyway. So I think it worked out for both teams.
Joy with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And
not to lose the dramatic appeal, but a doctor's appointment. But you know what? 2 years since pre-pandemic, since I've been here, it's amazing to see you and Joy in person old times.
It's great to have you. So, I said this. I'm already getting some pushback from the LeBron camp, which is fine. But I said, listen, LeBron didn't have to go on ESPN and say that. Okay. To me, that was pretty clear. He went on that show, and he was going to make a statement from Jeannie Buss, his good friend, that we're tired of getting dumped on here.
Right.
That's what it felt like to me.
Look, no one's blameless with this season. The Lakers thought that they were going to be at least competing for an NBA championship. They might not even make the play-in tournament, Colin. If they lose tonight against Phoenix and San Antonio beats the Nuggets, they are officially out of the play-in tournament. But in my mind, I think what Magic's been saying has been revisionist history. He had a tweet when the Westbrook trade happened, lauding it, saying, hey, the Lakers are going to be in the hunt for a championship. And as far as LeBron goes, look, put his game to the side. He's been playing out of his mind at 37 years old, 19th season. That's been amazing. Everything else, sure, there's things that you can criticize him for as far as his vision with the roster. But at the end of the day, the Lakers front office are the one pulling the triggers. And when he's giving feedback to the front office about players, whether it's Russell Westbrook or DeMar DeRozan or Buddy Hield, he's sharing his basketball intel and what he thinks about them as players. But he's not saying, do this, do this, do this. And he's also not saying, oh, be willing to give up this player and this player and this player to make it happen. That's what a front office is for, so they have to take responsibility for that.
Well, we've been very critical of we have said this team has had 7 losing seasons in 9 years. So, as I said about 30 minutes ago, I said, listen, he saved them. They were a mess.
Yeah.
I like Kuzma more than everybody else. I like KCP and Alex Caruso. I would not have moved off them. But I do think there's a thing happening here. Is, LeBron, even with Shabazz Napier in Miami, was like, I like that guy. And like Pat Riley's like, all right, we want to make you happy. When LeBron comes to a franchise, we have 4 different examples. You move off young players. You win now. I mean, he did that Cleveland, Miami, Lakers. I mean, we've seen this. Can I not argue this? Okay, we got the championship. But LeBron, you've got to evolve as a player. We've got to get younger. And you've got to be willing to play with some young guys, because you and I know he doesn't love that. He didn't want Andrew Wiggins. He wanted Kevin Love.
Yeah.
He didn't want Lonzo Ball. He wanted, he wants Melo. Doesn't LeBron hold a certain responsibility that as he is aged, he can no longer carry an average roster to anything?
Sure. He has to bear responsibility, and I think you can argue he bared his responsibility with his production on the floor this season. I mean, the numbers that he's posted this year are in line with his prime years in Cleveland. To your point, though, that hasn't been enough to carry and cover up the Lakers' flaws. But when I'm looking at the percentage of the blame pie here for why the Lakers are in this mess, I put number one, the front office with the roster construction. I put number two, I put Russell Westbrook. Even though we knew his strengths and weaknesses, the bottom line, there was at least this expectation that he could be the number one guy and carry the team in the event that LeBron and AD are out because of injuries or just rest. Russell hasn't been able to check the box on a consistent basis as a number one, number two, number three option on off ball. With exception of him coming off the bench, they've tried to push every button there, and it hasn't worked. Number three is the injuries. There's been a lot of them to AD, LeBron, role players. That's obviously complicated. But I think the two main things that explain why the Lakers are where they're in is roster construction and Russell Westbrook and his inability to make the best of what he's inherited.
So I said when AD, after they won the championship in the bubble, so much of sports is buy low, sell high. Like Belichick mastered it. The minute you fall in love with a player outside of Brady, move on, get value. And it worked for 20 years with Brady. So when AD came after the bubble championship, and it was kind of, LeBron was saying, listen, I need you to play 38 minutes. I'm going to play 30. And he came in out of shape. And he's always had a reputation. He doesn't grind it in the weight room. AD's not that guy. Guys, he's just gifted. He doesn't grind it. He struggles, and many have said that's why he's hurt all the time, but whether that's fair or not. I would move off AD. Westbrook's an obvious.
Yeah.
I would move off AD. My question becomes, can you get anything for him unless he's great in the first half? What do you do with the AD issue, which is the dude gives you 50 games a year, 60 a year. That's what he is now.
Yeah, philosophically, I'm with you that they at least have to entertain the idea. As far as what I make of AD as a player, I view it a little bit differently. There's no disputing the games and the games that he's missed, his injury history, but I have attributed that more to his body and freak accidents happening as opposed to it being any sort of indictment on his training or his attitude. I mean, you look at last season with the Lakers-Suns first-round matchup, he was trying as best he can to gut it out and play. Yeah. His body just failed him. Same thing here recently. So because of that, I don't have concerns about his desire to be better or his competitive level, but injury histories are injury histories. And as you know, Colin, covering the NFL in any sports, the best ability is availability.
And he's not there.
And if the Lakers don't know what they're going to get, you have to at least entertain the idea. But I think where it's different with Russell Westbrook, I think regardless, they have to just cut their losses with whatever they can get, even role players, first-round picks, contract buyout, as opposed with AD, it's really about, okay, what is there on the market that could make this a better solution? But there is a pathway of still making the best with LeBron and AD as long as they address the rest of the roster, and easier said than done.
Let me throw this out, the Westbrook piece. So when he came, I said, I don't love it, but AD gets hurt a lot. LeBron's older. He'll be productive. Somebody's got to give him 25 a night.
Yeah.
And I didn't know the Westbrook thing would go sideways this quickly, but my takeaway was, I've never been a Westbrook fan. I'm more of a Chris Paul point guard guy. I was never a Wall fan. But I did think, who's going to score when AD and LeBron are out? They need points. So give me a magic solution, because in the NFL, I can just cut guys. I don't have to have matching salaries. NBA makes it very hard. When you're bad, you're often bad for a decade. It's really hard. How do you dig out from the Westbrook? Give me a team. Give me a scenario that makes any sense.
I don't know any specific teams, but the scenario is the Lakers are going to have to move the goalposts, and it's about accepting a deal that involves a handful of players that might meet and fulfill these positional needs that they're lacking, and some draft picks. There's no trade out there that's going to result in getting some all-star caliber player. So that's scenario number one, role players, draft picks. And scenario number two is convincing Russ to accept a buyout where, hey, look, you saw what this last season was all about with the awkward fit and
fans heckling and
a lot of, I think, it goes without saying, unjustified personal attacks in terms of his family and death threats and all that. But the bigger thing is the basketball fit. And if they're able to have those conversations and sell, look, this is your ability to join a team that you think is a better fit, maybe that can work, but that's going to have to involve some negotiating, some tough conversations. But those two scenarios are much more realistic than this idea that, okay, now the summer's hit, we're going to be able to trade him. They tried to trade him during the trade deadline. The only option they really had was Houston.